I just realized I dropped some heavy American lore in the back one when I said the whole greatest generation and boomers. I'm going to explain where that comes from real quick. Once again, boomers are emotionally stunted, so here it is, the glorious psychology. Chronic self-absorbed, self-preoccupied behavior. They think of themselves first. Limited or complete lack of empathy, lack of guilt or remorse, disregard for your well-being, the safety of those you love. They do what feels best. They do not learn from past mistakes and continue to repeat behaviors that have negative consequences. Lack of self-reflection, inability to take your place and take your perspective, put themselves in your shoes. History of conflict and drama in relationships. History of denying reality due to effective realism. Reality is what it feels like versus what it is. History is distorting reality, making up new narratives to deal with situations. To deal with it. History of impulsive behavior, more feeling than thinking, so they do what feels best. And enmeshments in relationships instead of emotional intimacy may focus on physical things versus emotional. They do not do emotional work. They do not know how to repair relationships effectively. Mix that with tetralad. Tetralad, anxiety, antisocial personality disorder, addiction, memory loss, low neurons, and psychopathy. The beautiful psychology of the church. Anyways, so what happened with the greatest generation is I didn't bother to put together a timeline. These are just events that happened to the greatest generation. The greatest generation is the generation that came before the boomers. These are the people from the 1920s forward. They got the shit kicked out of them. The government made a bunch of bad decisions because they had a bunch of lead-brained idiots. And among them was they accidentally created the Dust Bowl. So the Dust Bowl happened, and during the Dust Bowl, they had large families, and most people died. Okay, they died of literally inhaling dust. Like, dust killed people. There's stories of, I spoke to this old dude one time, and he was telling me, like, you know, what it was back in the day, playing stickball and being able to drop the N-word, without judgment, but he had a specific thing where he told me the story of his family. He had a mother and a father and like 7 brothers and sisters. And they ended up, basically, they waited out the Dust Bowl believing the crops would come back because the soil had gone sour. And they waited, and then eventually people in the town started dying, and they were burying people in the town. And then the people burying the people would die because they'd inhale the dust and it would get stuck in their lungs, and then they would die from it. Yeah. He said their family realized it was time to go when the youngest baby in the group, during the night, some dust blew into the house and the baby inhaled it and died. It suffocated to death. And then his story goes, they started trying to head back into town, or back, like, to civilization, try to find civilization, but it was just miles and miles and miles of dirt. And during that trek, they ended up at a house. The truck ran out of gas. They had to push the truck. They started running low on preserves, like food. And then his brother and sister died from dust inhalation. His parents got really ill. And then it was him and his brother in this house with his parents. And then during the night, the parents left them a jar of preserves. It was like peaches. And they went out and sat in the truck and opened the windows and let the dust fly into the truck, and they died. And then this dude had to care for his brother and walk his brother 50 miles, eating nothing but peaches. Him and his brother. And then his brother got ill, and he didn't know what was wrong with him. And then eventually his brother died, and he had to bury his brother in the ditch. And then they got to go to World War I. Or 2. I think it might have been World War II. I'm pretty sure it was World War II. Either one of those, whatever, the Dust Bowl. I don't know the timeline. I'm not a superior being. I'm not perfect. Whatever. Anyways, they then got to go to war. So that guy was like, my brother died horribly. I get in the town, and a couple years later, he's like, about a year later, he was like, got sent off to war. And he was like, you meet these people, you commiserate with them, they tell you their horror stories of leaving the Dust Bowl, their family members dying horribly, and then war. Beautiful, beautiful war. He told me the story that he was part of, like, I guess, like, I think it was World War II, because he was talking about being part of the 1st Airdrop Battalion, and this dude that was really funny and loud, he liked playing cards or something. They lit up the plane, and it shredded through that tin can like Swiss cheese, and the bullets tore right through that man. And that was the last image this guy saw, was this really friendly, funny guy that had experienced hell on earth in the Dust Bowl. And he's like, that guy he's like, you remember talking to him? That guy told him he didn't believe he was going to die in the war because he didn't die in the Dust Bowl. That's not how life works. And he was like, I parachuted down and started killing people. And I watched people die, and those people died. I spoke to other war people from, like, that era. I'm really weird. I used to always hang out with older dudes. And they used to tell me these horror stories. And that all aligned with the emotionally stunted boomer. How did it happen? Okay, so the former generation was traumatized, and I would argue they were probably emotionally stunted, but they also couldn't connect with their kids in a meaningful way on an emotional level. Okay, so boomers, what do they get? They get the lead water lines. Yeah, they put those in the ground, and lead, as we know, beautiful, makes you a psychopathic asshole. And emotionally stunted. The most beautiful psychology on the planet. And why were boomers emotionally stunted? It was because the greatest generation could not connect with them on an emotional level. It wasn't in them. It is the equivalent of trying to plug a plug into a wall without an outlet. This bitch-ass boomer I talked to one time, I remember him talking about his dad and how he just wanted his dad to say, I love you, boy, or I'm proud of you. Stuff like that. And the guy was like, my daddy never loved me. Boo-hoo, booty-hoo. You fucking stupid shit. But this fucking loser tells me these stories, and I remember telling him, you ever ask your dad, like, is he dead? And no, he's not dead. He's like 90. And you ever ask him what happened? Like, why he never connected with you? And this guy went and asked his dad about his life, and his dad told him he didn't want to talk about it. And then one night his dad called him, told him, I'm going to tell you. And then this guy came back and told me some horrible shit. That his dad had survived the Dust Bowl, gotten into like World War II, ended up like murdering like underage kids or some shit in some fucked up situation. His battalion got jumped, a bunch of them got shredded. He was put into the medical area and then rotated back out of the medical area and deployed 3 or 4 more times after that in like extreme combat, where he was watching people get like hamburger meat ground to death by heavy machine gun fire. Yeah. So he was like, basically everybody he had ever known, this guy's story, his father's story, basically everybody he had known, from his mothers to his sisters to his brothers, every family member this guy had known, every story he had about them was, and then they died too, and then he died too, and then she died too, and then he died too, and then that guy died too. You can understand why this guy doesn't want to get attached to anything, because he then died too. And his father told him, he was like, I remember you got sick as a kid. And he was like, Dad, I got the chicken pox. And he was like, and I assumed you were going to die too. And the guy was, that is why that guy could not connect with you. Because he was fucked up from life kicking the shit out of him. Okay, and we love kicking the shit out of people. Don't worry, fucking these people at the church, they love it. They jack off to it. They probably hear these veteran stories and they're just like, you know, they're disgusting people. It's just how they are. But like I said, whatever. I can have my opinions, you know. So that is why boomers are emotionally stunted. And I want to talk about the lead lines. The lead lines were part of a plan from the CIA to build a right-wing fascist utopia, and it worked. They hit people with the Red Scare, and everybody became anti-social, anti-communist, and extreme fascist. But because they put lead in the ground, and emotionally stunted boomers grew up to be emotionally stunted, lead brain addicts. Reagan, through the Contra affair, started flooding the ghettos with cocaine, thinking they were going to get black people addicted to it. They got the white people addicted to it. And the white people started paying into it, which is where you get Pablo Escobar and how ridiculously rich that guy got. Because white people love cocaine. Okay. And they love it because they're lead-brained addicts. They're nothing more. Lead-brained addicts. Okay. In this hilarious cycle, they believed they were going to turn. No. What they got was after the 60s, leading all the way through the 70s, into the 80s, what they got, they went from the 70s, the peace, love, and understanding era, right into the 80s, which was the highest crime wave ever in America. It in fact got so bad that they predicted by the 90s that everything was just going to go to shit. And this is the thing with the Roe v. Wade. Every unwanted child, like in this era between the 50s to 60s, you could just leave your house. Like if you hated your parents, you could walk out of your house, get a job, buy a house, buy a car. That was normal. People would join the circus, never see mama and daddy ever again. And people would have babies and leave them in dumpsters. Those dumpster babies would grow up unwanted. Everybody hated them. They felt unloved. They would form gangs. Those gangs went on to be mafias and all that other shit that came up in the 80s. And those gangs eventually turned into organized crime. Yes, this is why you don't put lead in your water. Okay, this is why you shouldn't drink lead, because this is where it leads. Lead-brained addicts. Okay, nothing more. And that is what these people were. They were all lead-brained addicts. You ever watch that wrestling show, Dark Side of the Ring? And the wrestlers are just like, it always snowed in Florida. Like, yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of cocaine. Yeah. And the people at the, you know what, we're not even, bleh. Anyways, so, yeah, so what happened? Why did the millennial generation not be lead-brain, emotionally stunted retards? Not all of us made it, but fluoride. Yeah, it's funny, you hear Republicans scream they hate fluoride, fluoride in the water is bad. Yeah, it is bad because it stops you from drinking lead. Yes, the fluoride coated the inside of the lead pipes and stopped the lead from getting into the water. So when millennials drank it, they didn't get lead brains. Well, most of us didn't. I drank the sprinkler water as a kid, so I got manganese brain. So there's that. I was still pretty stupid. And I am pretty stupid. I'm one of the dumbest people on the planet. You shouldn't trust me with anything. But yeah, fucking these lead-brained addicts, or the not lead-brained, the millennials grew up and they hated the boomers, and boomers were like, well, I hated my parents, so it's good that you hate me, because this is how this works. You're supposed to hate your parents. You're a fucking idiot. Your parents were fucked up from the fucking Dust Bowl and the 2 world wars. Okay, your parents survived through hell. They couldn't connect with you on an emotional level if they wanted to. You guys are just angry, stupid assholes. Okay, that have lead brains because you drank fucking pipe water and got lead brains. And this is also why America had the dementia and Alzheimer's epidemic. And if you know anything about heavy metal poisoning, it's also where ADD and ADHD comes from. And this here's your cleanup. Joe fucking Biden decided to pull the lead lines out of the fucking ground. Holy shit. Yes, 2024, 2023, they finally decided to do something about the lead pipes that were making lead-brain psychopaths. And yes, you could argue every criminal in jail that is an addict, every psychopath, every dumbass that does fucking drugs because they are lead brains from the government putting pipes in the ground. You could argue everybody in America is owed money from the U.S. government. If you have ADD, OCD, ADHD, any of those disorders, they come from heavy metals. Yeah. I'm normal, I'm just neurotic, I'm fucking weird, and nobody likes me. That's because you got heavy metals, dumbass. Yeah. Heavy metals, they control you. Yeah. I don't know. So I felt the need to explain that. So if you needed context for that other video I did about boomers, that's all you need to know about boomers. They're emotionally stunted because their parents couldn't be emotionally nurturing to them. They couldn't connect with them if they wanted to. Okay. The connections weren't there. It's like getting love from a lizard. Lizards can't love you. It's impossible. Is there anything else worthy of note? I don't know. You want to be critical about this. He didn't get the timeline like he got World War One, maybe World War Two. He didn't perform it perfectly, so he's lying. Blah, blah, blah. You know, there's going to be that cock. Tell him to quit drinking the fucking water. And I guess that's where you get the term. Something in the water. It's lead. It's lead. Lead's in the water. And here's the funny part. That goes all the way back to Rome, where the rural people who didn't drink the lead water of the inner cities would say that the people in the inner cities were weird. And they would say there's something in the water. There was. It's lead. It's lead. There's lead in the water. Tastes like candy. So, there's that. I do wonder what mankind would be like without lead brains, but this church that has these people drink tetralead, we'll never see it. We'll never see it. Not in this world. Yeah.